Hello guys, welcome to the second class of the expert course from Scriptcase. My name is Carlos, I'm your instructor for this course. Starting today's class, basically, let me give you guys a small overview of what we're going to do today. We're going to make a quick tour on the grid application by showing its basic features and functionalities. Then we're going to create a series of links on a grid application and also some master details. I'm also going to show you a little bit through the forms also. Basically, show you the types of forms and some of the customizations that you can do in a form application. So let's start here. Let me log in here, okay? Okay, so let's access that project that we created yesterday. Okay, you guys, just bear with me a little bit. Okay, these are the applications that you can create in Scriptcase. We have here, starting on the top left, the grid application, which basically is a simple application that you can basically create queries and display information on your screen based on a select query from your table exactly. Do some reports basically using some integrated charts, because the grid application also has some charts within it. The other applications here from the right, the chart application, the PDF report application, and let me see, the calendar application. No, sorry, only the grid, chart, and PDF applications work similarly using select queries to build up and display the data for the user. All the other applications, such as the form, control, calendar, you don't actually need to display the select query itself. Basically just need to select table for you to build the information and validate what you're passing on to the database. The control basically allows you to customize those validations on a more personal matter. Different from the form application, Scriptcase already creates most of those validation rules for you, not needing to modify in a more advanced detail. In this case, I'm going to go through most of the applications within this course. I'm going to go through with you guys step by step between these applications. But firstly, I wanted to start with the form. Okay, so let's click here on the form. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the table, the customers table. And what it does, it already suggests to me the name for this application. I'm going to leave it as form customers, okay? And on this page, basically, I can select the type of orientation that my form is going to display. I'm not going to go through all these four right now, but throughout the course, I'm going to show all four of them. You can also select the default language that you're going to use for the application. This can be changed within the application settings. You can edit the data types for the fields. I'll get to that later on, explain exactly what are data types. And you can edit the theme for the application. Before I get very advanced here, let me create the application. Just click here on create. And let me run the application. Okay, so this is the form application running. As you can see, it's a simple application. This is the Rhino theme, the Scriptcase 9 native theme. And let me give you an overview of what we see here at first. Well, we have the header on the top that basically shows the title for the application and the state that you're in right now. Currently, we're in editing mode, which allows us to edit the information on screen. That's why it's in editing here. We have the customer's title. Okay. On the right side, we have the date, the current date. And down here, we have the top toolbar. This can be changed, modified exactly with the options that you want to be displayed here. I'll show you that later. Here on the left side we have the quick search option that allows me to navigate through the records, looking up for specific information that I place here. For example, I want all the records that has an R in it. Alright, that didn't show much. MA. As you can see here, it changed the pagination. If I access the second record, there's Mark, the first record, there's Matthews. Okay, here on the center, we have the Dml buttons, which basically, the left one is to add a new record. It kind of redirects me to a blank form, so I can inform all the information necessary for it to work. I can cancel it, go back. Do note that it also changes the status of the form if you click on Add New. Okay. Okay. We have the Save button here. For example, if I just say Matthew and click on Save, it's going to process the data here. It's going to save the data automatically. And I can also delete the record. I'm not going to delete the record now because I'm going to need this customer for later on. Okay? We have the Exit button that basically this button displays when the form is being called through a JavaScript event. In this case it's showing because when I click on the Run button from Scriptcase, that's basically a JavaScript event that triggers the application to open. Alright, so that's why the button's displaying there at this moment. In the middle here we have our form body that contains all the fields that you can edit, modify, and from the information I want. On the bottom toolbar, basically, we have a navigation tool, which basically on the left side you can form the page or record in this case that you want to navigate to. In the middle, we have the navigation buttons, which contains the record page and the fast forward options here. That goes to the next record. In fact, you can skip to the last record, and the same thing goes to the first record. On the right side, we have the record count. Currently, we have 4 records. But do note, you can customize this. You can customize the top toolbar and bottom toolbar without any problems. Okay? Let me show you guys a couple of the basic settings that the form application has to offer. Let's go back here to Scriptcase. Okay, so here you can change the orientation of the application as I previously showed you when you create it. Basically, we have 4 types. We have the single record, the multiple records, the editable grid, and the editable grid view. Each type of orientation has its own particular design and functionality. Okay, so it's best for you to analyze in which cases you're going to be using which one. I'll be showing you guys some examples so you guys can later on decide exactly which one you want to use on your personal project. Okay, to change it, basically just select here the type that you want, but currently I'm going to leave it at single record. Okay, let's go here to the edit fields. Alright, so here is what we call the general part of editing fields. This kind of shows the basic information for each field for you to modify. Now let me give you a more technical view of what you can do in this page and considering what Scriptcase can offer you. Okay? On the first column we have the fields. They are the field names internally used from Scriptcase. So it's for you to manipulate and modify the information, kind of referencing the field itself. Next, we have the label. It's going to be the label itself that's going to be displayed for the user when you run the application. And then we have the data type. Okay, what is the data type? You're probably wondering, I have a data type in my database. For example, I have an ID that in most cases is an integer. As you can see there, the customer ID is in fact an integer. So basically, let me give you a scenario that might help you out in understanding why this is essential for the work of Scriptcase. Let's say you have a very old database that has a very rich structure, and you're given the order you need to develop a new system, and you're not allowed to change the database structure. This including the table modeling and the field data type or reference. Scriptcase offers you an option to modify the data type, but not on a database level. Only internally that allows you to manipulate the data within Scriptcase without modifying directly your database. So for instance, let's say you have a ID field that's basically a string or a varchar, depending on your database, and you know that you're only going to save numbers there, not going to save any letters. You can set that field to an integer directly here on Scriptcase. Just clicking here, you have a vast options of data types, not only the types that you see in databases, but also some validations that you can see here. There are some special validations that we apply based on your need. Okay, so we have some barcodes, we have some file uploads, we have selection types, we have Ajax fields, we have special types of fields, Google Maps, YouTube, theme. That's all based on the information that you want to display on the screen and exactly what you have saved in your database. So that's free for you to manipulate, alright? Of course, you need to have the knowledge of exactly, like, let's say I have a date that's stored in a varchar field. I can place it in a date field here just by changing it and going here to date. But I have numbers and I wanted to change it automatically to date. It's not going to happen. You need to change that. Actually, you need to treat that modification manually. Okay, so Scriptcase offers you a lot of options, but you need to know exactly what you're doing so you can use it in the best way that's possible, of course. Alright, on the next columns we have the new and update. What are these options that we see here? Basically, it's a control that allows you to set which fields are going to appear in each type of status for the form application. As I showed you guys, there's the editing mode, that's kind of considered the update status of the form application. And there's the new one, that's the new record when you're inserting a new record into the form. Basically, when you see here, all of them are checked, so this informs that the fields are going to appear in both statuses. Okay? If I uncheck here, check mark here for the update, for example, the field itself is not going to display in the update status, but it's going to display in the new record status. Alright? You can also simulate the field to be a read-only field, not allowing the user to change its value. Okay? And we have the required. Let's say you're inserting a new record and you want that field to be obligated for the user to inform. Basically, you just need to check this option, required, for each field that you want it to be inserted, obligated for the user. And then comes the PK. Again, you have an old database that you don't have the authorization to change its structure. You have a big table that doesn't have a primary key. This allows you to set the primary key within Scriptcase so that Scriptcase can itself manipulate the information not on a database level but internally, so it can know which field is going to be unique and it cannot be repeated itself. Okay, so this is a rich tool that allows you to manipulate on a higher level. These other options that we have here, which is the DB value insert and the DB value update. It's kind of a value, a standard value that you can kind of force into the field when you're inserting or updating. In the insert, we have a defined value that allows you to place a static value that's never going to be modified. There's the auto increment, that if your database has an auto increment, it's going to use that auto increment by default. And there's the auto increment manual. Again, if you don't have an auto increment in your database, Scriptcase allows it to simulate that type of auto increment internally. Okay. We have the date of insertion, which is, as the name says, the date when the record is in fact inserted into the database. The date time as well. We have the user IP that's inserting the record. And we have these three options here. That's basically values that's calculated by the database itself, not needing to be informed by Scriptcase. The update values, it's kind of similar, but fewer options. Alright? Showing this, basically, let me give you an example. Let's go here to the email. Basically, I'm going to click here on this pencil. That's going to redirect me directly to the advanced settings for that field. As you can see here, we have the customer's email field right here. We have its data type and a lot of more options that we can personalize. In this case, I'm going to change its data type to email, in fact. Alright. This is going to refresh the page and load the custom settings for the email typed field. In this case, I'm going to enable the validation image, and I'm going to disable the icon. Doing this, if I run the application, it's going to generate the source code and it's going to refresh here. Let's say I'm going to modify this email here. Let's place courses, leave it at that. It's validating now to see if that's a valid email in fact. Let's try courses at Scriptcase. Still invalid. .net. As you can see, there's a check mark here affirming that that's a valid email. This does not verify if the email exists, though. It only validates the format itself that's being informed to the Scriptcase itself. Okay? Next thing I can do here, show you guys, I'm going to organize this form. For example, the phone number, I can inform letters. That's not supposed to be happening. I wanted to inform numbers, but I wanted to inform in a limited type of value. So let's go back here. Let's go here to Scriptcase again, and let's go here to phone. There isn't a data type for telephones, sorry, but Scriptcase does offer another option for that. If you see this question mark here, if you click it, you're going to be redirected to the Scriptcase Manual. This manual right here is in Portuguese, but let me see if I have the manual here for the English version. Okay, got it. So let's go here by application. Form fields. Okay, so we're in the text field. And let's go here to the part that displays the mask. Okay. Here are the masks. Basically, you have a couple of masks that are for numbers and letters. And you can see here we have the example of the mask, the input value, and results of that being visualized by the user. This is not inserted into the database itself. So basically, if you place this example here of the number, phone number exactly, it's not going to be inserted this way to the database. It's going to insert this value right here, because it's only a visual part. Actually, it's a visual treatment for the user. Okay, but we also have the option to inform a multiple mask for the telephone itself. For example, if I copy this one, copy this, and go here. There's the field mask option that I can place it right here. Okay, let me run it. Okay, just refreshed. Let's see. 8888. Okay. Alright, so we can format it, actually. If I save it. Okay. Now let's go here for another level. You see here, customer city, right? We have Olinda. But let's say I wanted to choose the cities that I have stored in my database. I can do that, actually. Let's go back here to Scriptcase. Let me show you guys a little trick that Scriptcase has to offer. Let's go here to city. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to change the data type to select. Alright, so I changed it to select. If I scroll down a little bit, no, it didn't show the scroll here. Well, it kind of shows this. This field, this select field that I just placed here, it allows me to list options directly from my table using a select query, or I can insert the information manually. This is called Lookup Settings. Alright? So we have two methods. We have the manual and automatic. In this case, I'm going to use the automatic. Later on, I'm going to show you guys how the manual works. But for this example, I'm going to use the automatic. Okay? You can insert a select query here without any problems. But if you don't know exactly what type of query you're going to use, just click here. Create select. And select here the table. City. Alright. And we have here two fields. We have the ID and name. Why do we have two fields? The first field, the ID, is going to be used internally by Scriptcase to manipulate the data. And the second field, called name, is going to be used to display the information for the user, as described here on the left side. So if I save this and run the application, I can see a lot of cities here, okay? There are a lot of cities. But this kind of interrupts me because I need to know the cities that I have for my country, okay? So I can do the same thing for the country, in fact. Let's go here to the country. And I'm going to set it to a select type also. We close here. And also automatic. I'm going to select the table country. And the key is going to be the code, in fact. And the field that's going to be shown is going to be the name. So I'm going to mark that. And I'm going to run the application again. So you can see here, it showed us already Brazil. So we have a lot of countries to select. But for instance, I want to change to the United States. But the city I want it to be reloaded automatically when I change the selection. Let me just change the settings of this format application again. Let's go back to the Scriptcase, and what I'm going to do first, let's go here to field positioning. And what I'm going to do is, let me remove the customer state and the sec users login. What I'm going to do, I'm going to position the customer's country above city. This option here allows me to configure which fields I want it to be displayed in both insert and update statuses, and allows me to position the fields exactly how I want them. So I'm going to save it, and Let me just run it again so you guys can see the modifications done. Okay, so I want to change the country so that the city can be reloaded. This can be done. If I go here to customer's country, scroll just appeared now. Strange. No. It's probably maybe a bug from Chrome. I don't know. Well, going back to what I was saying, there's an option called Ajax Processing. It acts like a trigger. In this case, as you can see here, it's an event on a on change. So if I enable this on the customer country, it's going to trigger a Ajax processing each time I change the country selection. So when I enable this, it allows me to reload other fields of the type select, double select, radio, and checkbox, and already identified the other select field that I have in the form, which is the customer cities. So I'm going to select that one, okay, and I'm only going to save that right now. I'm not going to run the application yet. Why? Because I still need to do another thing. If I go back here to customer city, I need to filter the information based on the country field. How do I do that? In here, in the select statement, I'm going to do a where clause based on the city, in fact. Let me just get here the reference field. It's country code, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a where clause on this country code. So it's going to be like this. Where country code equals, open up the keys, curly brackets, and call the customer country field. I'm going to explain to you guys later on the syntax of Scriptcase, of course. This is how Scriptcase references fields in queries and also in the PHP code. Okay, just by doing this, let me run the application now. It's going to save and compile the code. Okay, so let's start by this. Let's go to the United States. Okay, it just changed here. I can see all the cities from the US. Okay. Interesting, right? If I place back to Brazil, it just loaded all the information from Brazil. Cool, right? Save that. Modified successfully. But let's say I didn't want to select the country directly. I want to type it in. No problem. If I go back here to the country, I'm going to change the data type to a text autocomplete. This is a Ajax field, basically. It kind of loads suggestion records from my table based on what I'm typing in at the moment. As you can see, it also uses a select query to load the information. If I run the application now, United States, Albuquerque, Brazil, Olinda. Nice, huh? John is asking if I'm going to share the database for practice. It's going to be available for download at the Distance Learning System. Sorry, Arnold, you asked, so are the lists located scroll bars? Oh, sorry, Arnold, it's because I'm using a Mac, and the scroll bar Basically, it doesn't show directly. Let me try to scroll up here. Because it's scrolled on Mac, it's kind of different. You see that type of scroll there? On the right side, it's going to show that type of scroll on the Mac. Okay. Yes, Marsha, that's possible to do a drop-down filled with fixed selection, as yes or no. Yes, that's possible. You're going to use a lookup method of the manual type. Throughout the course, I'm going to show you guys how to use that. In this example, I need to use the automatic, okay? Alright, since I don't see any more questions about this application, I'm going to continue then. I'm going to show you guys another tool that's called Data Dictionary. What is the Data Dictionary? The Data Dictionary allows you to kind of make your application look internationalized. It kind of makes all the labels into variables and allows you to translate them manually. Let me show you an example. Let's go here to Tools, Data Dictionary. And basically what I'm going to do is, this is where you're going to set up your data dictionary. So it kind of asks you for a name of the data dictionary. I'm going to call it appointments. Description, I'm going to call it appointments also. Use the schema before the table. Yes. Convert table fields to... I'm going to leave that in blank. I'm going to use the connection I already have. And associate the dictionary with my connection. Yes. What it does actually, it reads all the tables that you have in your database and creates a data dictionary based on those tables. In this example, I'm going to use the customers. Okay, so I'm just going to select the customers and go to next. It's going to ask me if your applications use multiple languages. Scriptcase can automatically create indexes for the application's fields, labels in language files. So it kind of asks me, generate the indexes in language files with the table fields, labels? Yes. If they exist, should I overwrite them? Yes. Add. Okay, so I now have a data dictionary based on my customers table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it and I'm going to synchronize it with the applications. So it's kind of going to look for all the applications that I have using the customers table. So when I click here on next, it's going to identify my form applications. And from here, it allows me to modify the labels, the data types, the size of the fields, and the masks, and so on and so forth. This kind of makes it easier to set up applications if you set up this previously. Why? Because all the settings for the fields come by default depending on the data dictionary. So if you set up the data dictionary first, before creating the applications, it already applies the information that you want, like data types, masks, field limits, field sizes, fields that are required for the user to inform. It's all set previously before creating the application. So when you create the application, it already comes with all that set by default. But in this case, I'm just going to apply the labels. So when I synchronize this, it's going to modify the labels for my application. So if I go back here, you're going to see this customer country, right? If I click here again, it changed. This is the language variable created by the data dictionary that has a prefix of lang. That's how we identify a language variable, alright? Okay, but I created these variables, but how am I going to inform the value of each one of them? That's easy. Let me close here the data dictionary. If I go here there's application language. If I click on it, I'm redirected to all the language variables that are available in Scriptcase for this project in specific. Okay, so it informs me. General numbers. There are 3 languages used in this project. 939 unique messages. 11 unique messages from the user. 950 total messages for the project. Alright. If I go here on the left side, I have the Scriptcase default messages we have for JavaScript, buttons, calendar, charts, flash charts, logs, others, PDFs, search, security, and validations. And we have the project messages that are created by the data dictionary. In this case, we have the TBL that stands for table, and we have the customers table here. So if I click on that, I can now see a list that shows me the language variable here on the left side and its value for each language, for example. So, for instance, let's say I want to place here the English name, the French nom, and Spanish nombre. Okay, let me save that, update the messages. If I go back here to the form application, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to the toolbar and I'm going to add a new option to my top toolbar. So when you access here the toolbar settings, you're going to see these 4 lists. The 2 lists on the top are referencing the top toolbar, and the 2 on the bottom reference the bottom toolbar. What I'm going to do is we have on the left side all the options that are not displayed currently on the toolbar. And what I'm going to do is select the languages here. And on the right side we have 3 sections. Actually 3 sections. We have the left section, the center section, and the right section. Look at here. The left section is where the quick search is. The center section is where the Dml buttons are. And the right section is where the exit button is. What I'm going to do is set the languages on the right section next to the exit section, but before it, of course. Let me save that. As you can see, we have name here. Alright? And it's using English United States. Let me change to French. As you can see, it translated basically all the native buttons. And also, this is showing nom. For Spanish, nombre. And it also translated all the native buttons without any problems. Okay? Okay, I have a question here from Arnold. Is it only allowed 1 data dictionary per project? Well, basically, if you go back here, I can create the amount of data dictionaries that I want. Okay, how do you reference them? For instance, if I create a new application now, I'm going to create a grid, for example. As you can see, it's referenced by the connection that I have. Okay, so if you have a data dictionary based on the same connection, it's probably going to show both of them. Let me try that. I'm curious. In line 2, for instance. Connection. Create. It's created. Okay, let me go back. Let's see if it shows both. I think it shows the latest one actually when you created it. And doesn't allow you to select. But let me delete this one. But normally when you create a data dictionary, you reference it only once, okay? It kind of changed the status here. It's now associated with the connection. Let me update it. Yes. Because it's only allowed one data dictionary per connection now. So when you create a new application, it shows here the appointments. Okay? Marcia is asking, can you add languages after the fact? Well, you can add languages in the project by just going here, project properties. Go here to locals, and you can add more languages here. Okay? When you add more languages here, it's going to ask you to go here to application languages so it can be updated for all the references that we have here of messages within Scriptcase. And also it's going to display another column here to display the values that's going to be inserted for the new language. Okay? Let's go here to the next application I'm going to create, which is the grid application itself. This grid application, you can see here on the right side we have a SQL select statement. You can use the SQL builder basically to create that statement from here, or close up here. Basically just select the table that you want to use. In Scriptcase 9, we allowed the user to select more than one table to create the select query. But in this case, I'm only going to use one, which is the customers itself. Okay? I can also select the fields that I wanted to be displayed. In this case, I'm going to go directly to the point. I don't want the sec user login to be displayed, so I'm going to uncheck that. It kind of refreshes the SQL here on the right side. Okay, and I'm going to leave its name as grid customers. Okay, so let's create that. And let me run the application so you guys can see how it looks like. Well, this is the grid application. Well, again, the small overview on the application. On the top part, we have the header. That's similar to the form application. Then below that, we have the toolbar. Again, there's a quick search on the left side. In the center, we have a couple of buttons. The columns, which in fact allows me to set dynamically which columns I want it to be displayed. So for example, I can remove the customer ID, and it's not displayed. I can drag it back here, apply, okay. We have the sorting, that we can sort basically, let's say I want to sort based on the name alphabetically. Okay? I want to export the data in PDF, Word, XLS, XML, CSV, RTF, or I can basically print the screen. I can also do an advanced search based on the data that I have here. And down below here we have the jump to the page and view the min amount of records. I don't know if you guys remember yesterday, but I changed the default settings and I set the view to 20 by default. Since I created a grid, it already comes with that view by default. Okay? Now, going back here to the grid settings, the initial settings of the grid allows me to set up 5 modules that the grid supports. We have the search module, we have the grid module, we have the detail module, we have the summary, and we have the charts. What's the difference between each one of them? Well, basically, at first, the grid, search, and detail module are available. As you can see here, the search is the advanced search, and the detail is when I click here on these 3 buttons. Sorry, these 3 dots. It kind of shows me the complete data of that record. But the summary and charts are only available for me if I have a group by setup in the application. Okay, so I'm going to set that up later on. I can also set the initial module for the grid. Let's say I want the grid to start as a search. If I set that and run the application, hold up. It starts at the advanced search module. But I'm going to set it back as the grid. Okay, in this grid application, I don't think you guys noticed, but I need to format the customer phone. Okay, as you can see, it also created the labels for the grid based on my data dictionary. As you can see, the name is coming as a value that I set in my data dictionary values. Okay, so as I said, it sets by default those values. Let's go here to fields and go here to phone. I need to apply the field mask, but the mask for the grid application is different. Let's go here to the manual. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the grid, go to fields, text, and I'm going to scroll down to the masks. The grid application does not support multiple masks, and as you can see, the mask for the to be informed is a little bit different from the form. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this first one right here. Let me copy that, and I'm going to set it here. Let's run the application, see what's the result. As you can see, it kind of formats, although we have these bunch of 8s that aren't part of the number. Okay, I'm going to apply the country field to be displayed here. Basically, just go here to Scriptcase, field positioning, and I'm going to add the country here, save, and I'm going to do the same thing I did in the form. I'm going to set up a lookup settings, but different from the form. The grid application does not contain a select field. Why? Because the fields are basically labels. They aren't meant to be selected. So how does it work exactly for me to set up a lookup settings for this application? Simple. If I access here the customer country, all the text fields already come with the lookup method. Basically what I need to do is just set it to automatic, create the select based on the country, and check it. It already creates me a where clause because it's going to get the information that's loaded up by the database, which is in fact the fragrant key, which is the code of the country, and passing that value to the select statement, it's going to modify the value that's going to be displayed for the user. That's going to be the name. This is internally treated. There's no need to worry about this. Okay, so if I run it now, it's going to show the country as it should. Okay, Brazil, United States, Brazil. I'm going to do the same thing to the customer city. Lookup method, automatic, create select, city, Check that. Run the application. A couple of them are not going to be displayed because it wasn't saving the ID of the city. It was saving the name in fact, but I'm going to change that. I'm going to show you guys a way to modify the settings of, actually, the information of the field without running the form directly. I can change it directly here from the grid application. It's something I like to call link. Well, in fact, it is a link. In Scriptcase, let's go here on the left side menu and let's access this menu right here, links, and click here on new link. In the grid application, we have the option to create 3 types of links: the application type, the field type, and the capture type. What's the difference between the 3 of them? The application type only exists between a grid and a form application. The field type allows me to link to any type of application that I want. And a capture type is normally used, let's say if I have a form that's going to need to capture information from a grid, like an ID or a name, for example. Yeah, I can create the inverse type of link here so it can be displayed on a form, for instance. But in this case, I'm going to create an application type link. Next, I'm going to select the form application I already created. Next. And in this part, it asks me about parameters. What are parameters? Parameters are values that are passed between links in this case. On the left side, we have the parameter that's going to be asked by. That if you see it, it's called customer ID. Why is it asking me for that value? Well, if I call this form application directly without filtering the data, how am I going to know that I'm modifying the information of the exact record that I clicked on? I need to pass something to the form so it can show me that exact information, correct? Well, that customer ID is the primary key of the form application. Alright, so it's asking me to send an information, send a value to the customer ID variable, which is the primary key. In this case, since we're using the same table, on the right side we have these 3 options. We have the option to send a field as a value, we have the option to send a fixed value, or we have the option to send nothing. There's the empty option right there. But in this case, since we're using the same table, we're going to select the field type, and we're going to set the customer ID as the value that's going to be passed on to the form application. So let's go here and click on Next. And here we have some settings that we can modify. In this case, I'm going to set it to open in the same window when I click on the option to edit the information. And I also have an option here to create a new record by adding the button New Row to the grid application. So I'm going to set that to yes. Okay, let me save it. And let me run the application so you guys can see exactly what it does. On the record itself, we can see a pencil here. If I click on edit this row, it redirects me to this record right here of Mark. What I'm going to do, I'm going to change the customer city to New York. If I save it and go back, it's set to New York here. Okay? I can also click here on the Add New, and it's going to redirect me to the form application to create a new customer. But I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to cancel and go back. There's also another type of link that I'm going to create. That's called the field link. So if I go back here to Scriptcase and set here field, it's going to ask me on which field I want it to be applied the link. In this case, I'm going to set it to the customer name. So this means that the customer name is going to be clickable now. So next, again, I'm going to select the form. I'm going to pass the customer ID as a parameter. And I'm going to change this. The link operation mode is going to be set to open any model. Okay? Yes, I want it to close after the update. Let's save this. Let me show you exactly what it does. Let me run the application. As you can see, Luke is now clickable. If I click on it, it shows me the form in a model view. And I'm going to choose here the field, the city. Let's say Los Angeles. Save. So I just updated here, Los Angeles. Same thing I'm going to do to Kyle. He's in Brazil, and I want him to live Recife. And I'm going to say that this is his number. So that updated it. Okay? Oh, Arnold just asked me, the phone number format should not be the same. You mean this one right here, correct? That's because in the database, it already is saved with that number. But if I modify here on Mark, for example, save. It's set to the same format. Okay? Well, unfortunately, the mask cannot be applied directly based on a type of country. Although, you can try setting the mask manually using JavaScript. Of course, the grid application, it does have jQuery already imported into it. If you want to try, feel free. Another tool that I want to show you guys is called the Batch Express Creation. This tool allows you to create a batch of applications at once, basically. Let me select here a couple of tables. The appointments type, the appointment status, the appointments type, only form, the staff, it's going to be a grid also, and the staff work time. That's only a form. So let's go here next. Okay. This allows me to set up the orientation type for each form application. Okay, so in the appointment status, it's going to be an editable grid view. The appointments type is going to be an editable grid. The staff is going to be a single record. And the work time is going to be multiple records. Multiple rows, exactly. Okay, so doing this, I'm going to generate the source code for each one of them. Let's finish here. Okay, so I generate the source codes for each one of them. And close these applications, I'm not using them. And now I'm going to show you guys how to create a master detail form. Well, the concept of the master detail is to display a master form and a detail list for the currently selected item. We will use the form staff as a master and the form staff work time as a detail. This application will show the info of the staff with his working weekly schedule. Okay, so let's open up those two. Form staff and form staff work time. It did. Okay, so firstly, let's go here to form staff. And I'm going to create a block. What are blocks? Blocks are as it says, it's a small box that's going to contain information. So let's go here to layout, blocks, and let's create a new block. I'm going to call this block detail. Detail in lowercase, actually. And I'm not going to display the label. Alright. Doing this, I'm just going to save it. And in the form staff work time, I'm going to go here to the... Actually, let me run the application so you guys can see how a multiple record looks like. It shows a lot of records at first, but most of the information here are not comprehensible at first. I'm going to modify it a little bit so you guys can understand it better. Let's go back here to Scriptcase. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go here to field positioning. I'm going to remove the ID, which is this work time ID, and the staff ID. I'm only going to leave the weekday, start time, and end time. Okay? Let me save it. Okay, saving it. I'm now going to go to the weekdays. And I'm going to set it as a select type. Setting it as a select type, I'm going to use the lookup method manually. Alright? So, Marcia, you asked me how to use the lookup method manual. Here's the example. There are various types of lookup types here. You have the multiple values using a delimiter, a position, or a binary value. But in this case, it's going to be a single value. Very simple. What I'm going to do is, I have to inform a value that's going to be displayed for the user, which is the label, and a value that's going to be manipulated by Scriptcase that's going to be the internal value. In this case, I need to display the weekdays from Sunday to Saturday. Okay, so the first one is Sunday. The value is going to be 1. Second one is Monday, 2. Tuesday, 3. Wednesday, 4. Thursday, 5. Friday, 6. Saturday, 7. Okay? Doing this, I'm going to save. If I run the application, this is how it's going to display for me the weekdays. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It allows me to select them. Okay? In the form orientation, since I set it to a multiple record, I can adjust the lines per page I want it to be displayed and the amount of records I wanted to insert. Okay, so I only wanted to insert 5 records at a time. So let me save that. And I'm going to add a couple of lines of PHP to it. Okay, so where do I add PHP code to it? If I go here to the events, these are all the events that the form application supports. Normally they're ordered by the time they are executed. Okay, so kind of the application it runs first, then comes the script in it, then the load record, then load validates when you use one of the Dml buttons. But in this case, I'm going to use only 2 events, the onload and onload record. I'm going to add this code right here. Again, this code repository is available at the Distance Learning System, okay? It's available for download. So, I'm going to open up here the onload record. And I'm going to place that here. What am I doing exactly? What is this flag days here? It's in square brackets. This is a global variable in Scriptcase. Global variables are normally considered session variables because they can be accessed throughout the whole project when they are declared and set a value. In this case, as you can see, it has a plus at the end. So this global variable is considered a counter. So it's supposed to contain an integer value. Okay? Is it declared here? No. I'm going to declare it in the onload. But let me explain to you guys what exactly is this validation I'm doing here. Well, if the weekday is empty, I'm going to set the weekday as the counter flag day. I'm going to set the start time as 8 o'clock and the end time as 18 o'clock, 6 p.m. in this case. As you can see, the curly brackets represent fields. If you open up here the fields, you're going to see exactly the same names here on this list. Okay? Let me get here the code for the onload. As you can see, I'm only declaring the flag days in the onload, which it starts by 1, which is the Sunday, in fact. Okay? So let me save this. Let me run the application. It's asking me for a value for the flag days. Why is this? A global variable, as I said, is considered a session variable, but it's also considered a variable that can accept parameters to it. So it's mostly used, let's say, in grid applications if you want to filter records in the grid application based on a record from your previous application. You can set it as a parameter to the grid application using global variables. Okay? Basically, what I'm going to do to disable this is go here to the grid application settings, basically. Here's the global variables down there. Let me just close this. The global variable here. Okay. And here we see the flag days. Alright. Basically, just set it to out. Alright. And save it. When it's in, it's expecting to receive a value as a parameter. When it's set to out, that means you're declaring it locally and you're already applying a value to it. Alright? So it only shows 5 records. Okay, so let's add new. Let me set, I think I set it to only list 5 records. It's supposed to only assert 5 also. Set here to 10. I inverted it. Okay. Next, looking at this application, let's go here to Scriptcase and go here to SQL. Remember again that I said that Scriptcase allows you to modify the data settings internally from Scriptcase, not basically touching your database. Well, this is another feature that it offers, is create copy site keys. What I'm saying is I can have 2 primary keys that this says that the work time ID cannot be repeated itself with the staff ID. So that staff ID can only have one type of work time, and that work time can only be set to that staff in specific. All right. Let's save that. And in the toolbar, in fact, I'm going to remove all the buttons, actually, and only set the insert, update, and delete to the center bottom toolbar. Okay, so it's going to be looking like this. It's going to ask me for an ID because I removed the paging actually. Okay. Generated that. Let's go back here to the form staff. Remember that I created here the block, right? Let's now create the master detail. Let's go here, master detail form, right here, and create a new detail. I'm going to call it work time. Create. And I'm going to select the form staff work time. Next. Again, it now it asks me for a parameter for regular keys. In this case, we have the staff ID. This is showing in my form staff, okay? And the key here is from the work time, which is the detail application. In this case, I'm just going to reference it. The staff ID is going to be the staff ID from my detail field. Doing that, going here to next. And it's going to ask for the flag days. The flag days, I'm not going to pass any information for that because it set it manually in the work time field. So let me save that. This is a small settings that it asks me to set up, but it's unnecessary because I don't need to set the iframe width or height. I can save it as it is, actually. Save it. Alright, since it's saved, let me run the form staff. And what it does, basically, it loads the work time for each user. So let's say Abraham here is going to work starting at 9 o'clock. Okay, I'm going to save that. Okay. Let's go here to the next one. Go back. As you can see here, it's 9 o'clock for Abraham. As for the next one, which is Isaac, it's 8 o'clock. So it filters the work time based on the staff that's listed at the moment. Okay? Since this application is created, I only have one more application to show you guys today, which is the menu application. Let's open up here. Create here new menu application. Menu. I'm going to call it menu actually. Create. Okay, and I'm going to add a new item. These are the controls for the menu application itself. Basically, Scriptcase has two types of menus. It has a tree menu and a more modern menu, which is this one. It allows me to change the theme directly for the menu itself, set it to vertical or horizontal. But in this case, I'm going to use it horizontal, and I'm going to create a new item. This item, I'm going to call it settings. And in the settings, I'm going to add another item, which I'm going to call staff. Staff. I'm going to link the form staff that I created. And I'm going to create another one for the customer, which is the grid application I created. Okay, let me run the application. Staff. Customer. Okay. It supports a tab view here. Okay, guys. Well, guys, seeing that there aren't any more questions coming in, that's it for today. Basically, I created all the applications that I had to create today, and showed you guys all the tools I wanted to show you guys today. Then, have a nice evening. I'll be seeing you guys tomorrow at the same time. Alright? Okay then. Bye, guys.